If you're a business owner and you can't find the right girlfriend, life partner or wife, then this video is for you. Today, we're going to talk about a couple of really important subjects that are going to help you get more dates with the right women, keep them interested in you, develop a proper selection mechanism so you can differentiate between the right ones and the wrong ones, and eventually find the right girlfriend, life partner, and wife. So without further ado, let's crack right on in. Most likely you're somebody who's quite logical in his behavior. You're somebody who's very structured in his thinking. Perhaps you're a little bit shy, a little bit introverted. Maybe you're extroverted, but your thinking is quite rational and your communication is quite rational because that's what you've trained in your professional life for many, many years. And you realize it works quite well, and I myself can identify with that very well. I'm German. Now, I'm not the most typical example of a German, fair enough. I don't give two damns about football or cars. I've driven a variety of fast cars, but I'm not too concerned with what's under the hood. So I'm not the prime example of a German, but there is a little bit of the logical engineering type probably in there. Father, doctor, so a little bit of that was passed on to me. So I understand that very well. I myself used to struggle with talking to women in an emotionally engaging way. And you have to understand that just because you're rewarded for something in one context, that doesn't mean that that strategy is going to yield the desired result in a different context. In a professional environment, in a meeting with your business partners, with your employees, with various different service providers, you realize that what you say is going to be evaluated based on its merits. You try to be as precise in your communication as possible. You're trying to make every sentence count. Therefore, you think quite hard what you're about to say next. And because you don't want to waste your time or somebody else's, because you realize time is the most valuable resource. But you've realized that that may not necessarily be the most effective way to communicate with women in a dating context. Now, you do probably want a wife, girlfriend, or life partner whom you can have an intellectual as well as an emotional and physical connection with. You want somebody that you can actually talk to interesting things about. You want to be able to have deep and meaningful conversations. You want to be able to talk about whatever nerdy hobby or passion or interest or project you have or you're currently working on. Of course, at the same time, you have to understand that not just women, but human beings are emotional in general. Not just women. People always say, oh, women are so emotional, and it's absolutely true. But you as well are driven by emotions. Any decision you make is at its core driven by emotion. Of course, the most effective operators in this world, they combine the head and the heart. They combine the logic and the emotions. You know people who are either only too logical and emotionally numb, or people who are all over the place and they follow every little emotional instinct and they have zero self-control, zero emotional discipline, and that doesn't work for them in the long term either. So obviously you want a combination of both, but ultimately the reason you're even watching this video right now is because there are emotions present within you that come from underlying unmet psychological needs of perhaps loneliness, maybe a bit of frustration, maybe boredom. So there's two reasons why you'd ever do anything in life. And it's basic psychology that goes far back. No need to nerd out about the history of personal development psychology, but two driving forces in the human psychology. One is pain, the other one is pleasure. You only ever do things to, one, avoid pain, and on the other hand, to gain pleasure or positive emotions. And the pain you may be trying to avoid, but trying to find the right girlfriend, life partner, or wife, maybe loneliness, maybe a degree of intimate desires, frustration, boredom, maybe the anger that comes from meeting the wrong type of women. There's a degree of pain. That's one thing that's driving you to watch a video like this. There's a degree of, back in the day when you started your business, maybe there was fear or stress, a degree of financial pressure that drove you. Maybe painful experiences. I'm gonna show you, you had an enemy of some sort. It could be somebody from school, could be a competitor, could be a parent, somebody that you wanted to prove something to, some fictitious or very real enemy. I'm gonna show you. Degree of anger, competitiveness. There was a pain side of things that drove you and away from motivator. On the other hand, there are certain towards motivators. You want to gain love, connection, the joy of having somebody by your side, physical, intimate connection, as much and as crazy as you want. Maybe just somebody to share dinner with. maybe somebody to have a family with. You have this vision of what you want things to be like. And these needs, in essence, or these underlying needs that then create emotions, are the driving force even for you. So not just for women. Now, coming full circle, women are part of the human species and therefore very emotional in their behavior and way more so emotional in their communication than men. So if you want to be able to hook somebody's interest, you have to learn to communicate at the level of emotion and not logic. If you can, there's one parallel. Let me address this. Maybe that's going to help you. In a business meeting, what are you trying to do? You're trying to add value, you're trying to achieve your own outcomes and help the other party achieve theirs. You've probably realized that the best type of negotiation isn't where you're trying to take something away from somebody else, because that's short term, that's transactional, and that's fine sometimes, but the best wins, the biggest wins you've achieved came from long-term relationship, and you found ways to expand the pie, as they say. You found ways to negotiate where you've added things to the equation that came at a very low economic cost to yourself, that had a very high potential subjective upside for the other party. So you found ways to create a win-win situation. Yeah, most likely, objectively, in one deal, the other person's going to have a little bit more, and the other deal, the other person's going to benefit a little bit more. It's never going to be 100% even, but in general, you're trying to help the other person achieve their outcomes. It's the same thing with women. If you can understand that at a date, in an intimate relationship, all you're trying to do is help women achieve their outcomes, then things become a lot more simple. What do they want? They want positive emotions first and foremost. And if you roll in there all logical, all stressed or serious because you have mindset issues, because you run out of things to say, because you don't know how to create a man-to-woman connection, because you're all logical, because you just came from an 11-hour or maybe just a 3-hour workday, depending how you structured your life. You've had a couple of, or at least even if you had only a 3-hour workday, you probably haven't had a lot of fun, positive, lighthearted, playful interactions that day. So you arrive at a date and you're quite logical, and then she dries out emotionally and physically. So that's one thing. You have to learn to communicate more at the level of emotions and not logic. The other thing is time. You might be telling yourself, oh, I don't have enough time. It takes so much time to find the right woman. And is that really true? If you sleep 8 hours a night, which you might not even, most likely sleep a little bit less. I highly encourage you to sleep 8 hours a night. Check out Matt Walker's book. I believe that's his name. Not quite sure why we sleep. But even if you did sleep 8 hours a night, you'd still have 112 waking hours available to yourself per week. How much does it take? 5 to 8. 5 to 10. It's the amount of time it takes to find somebody over the course of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. Maybe sooner, maybe a little bit longer, is marginal. 5% of your waking time. Can you dedicate 5% of your 5 to 10% of your waking time to finding someone for a couple of months and then be done with it? It doesn't take that much time. And now you might say, David, well, dating apps aren't really my thing. Well, don't discard something that just because you haven't been able to make it work. The only reason you don't like dating apps is because you haven't been able to make them work, because you don't know how to present yourself in an effective fashion. I mean, would you discard a new strategy in marketing or operations just because you haven't been able to make it work? If it really doesn't work, if there are objective factors that indicate that this strategy simply doesn't work, obviously you're going to discard it and you're going to try something else. But what are you going to do if something doesn't work? Well, first you're going to try to make it work. And if it doesn't, well, you find something else. Now with online dating, the fact of the matter is there's plenty of other men, thousands, hundreds of thousands of men in the US alone who are getting fantastic dates with amazing women from online dating apps such as Hinge, Tinder, Bumble, Match.com, Facebook dating, and certain niche ones depending on your political or religious orientations. Don't discard a tool just because you haven't figured it out yet. It's one of the biggest things that I help my clients with. Online dating, I would say, I'm not sure, 60-70% of my clients find their wives, girlfriends, life partners through dating apps. I help them create a completely new profile, present themselves in an authentic but also effective fashion, prompts, pictures, everything. If you want my help with that, click the link underneath and apply for a free initial consultation call. I've worked with business owners, professional men, for many years now, from a variety of different countries, almost 30. And one of the things that I like about people like yourselves is you've already done almost all of the work. Almost all of the work has been done. You've already shaped yourself into a fantastic product. Who you are is already amazing. Now, you might not think of yourself as such, and fair enough, because in business, you're not rewarded for focusing on what's going well. You're focused on eliminating blind spots, and the more you eliminate, the more you realize they are. So you're the person who's the most aware of your insufficiencies. That's why you have another, or a rather harsh inner dialogue. And you don't want to get too big for your own head. You're quite humble because you realize, if I get too cocky, if I get too confident, I'm going to, at least if you've been in business for quite some time, you realize they're going to come to bite me in the ass too long at some point, so I better stay level-headed. But that lack of self-empowerment, that lack of an understanding of how cool a person, how solid a man you already are, hinders you with your freedom of expression on dates. It hinders you when it comes to creating the degree of confidence necessary to get and keep the right type of women. So, come back to what I was saying earlier. You're already pretty good. You've already shaped yourself into a fantastic person. You have your blind spots, you have your flaws, and I have mine. But who you are, the product is already pretty good. It's just the marketing sucks. And I'm not just talking about having a personal brand with 300,000 people on Instagram, 500,000 people on TikTok. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the marketing to your target audience amongst women. Because there's a specific type of woman that likes you the way you are. Now, not the way you currently are, not the way you're currently communicating, not with your lack of confidence, not with your lack of understanding of how to relate to women in an intimate fashion, but the core of who you are. That doesn't need to change. Your core personality does not need to change. There is a target audience for that. But unless you learn to communicate to that specific target audience, they're always going to pass you by and you're going to miss those opportunities. And even if you find someone like that, you're going to find ways to mess it up. So it's very important that you understand that most of the work is done. You're almost already there. It's just that the communication has to change. That's all that has to happen. Communication, confidence, and understanding the psychology of attraction. In other words, almost a little bit of German in there. In anderen Worten, in other words, the social dynamics of how men and women relate to each other. The cool thing is, you've already done so many things that the right type of women would appreciate. Aren't you already able to offer a great life to her? And I'm not talking about buying her a Louis bag for 2K. That's not what this is about. But it is about understanding that you are already in the top 5, 10, 1.1 percentile. You're already there. You're already a really kind, good-hearted person. You're already somebody who genuinely wants to treat her well. All of that is already there. It's just the marketing side of things. If you want my help with that, apply for a free initial consultation call with the link underneath this video. And I also told you that we're going to talk a little bit about this idea of screening and qualifying. Because when you learn to express yourself more radically honestly, that's one of the best, there's many other ones, but it is one of the best qualification mechanisms. It is not necessarily by asking questions that you figure out who's right for you and who's wrong for you, but by making provocative statements that are in alignment with your true character that will differentiate the ones who will love you or hate you. For example, if I were to, things that I can't even say publicly because everybody's so politically correct and everybody gets fucking offended these days. But if I were to share with you some of my not politically correct opinions, you'd either love or hate me, which is perfectly fine. Because if we dislike the same things, you already feel closer to me, right? Same thing on a date. If you express very strong opinions that symbolize where you're at with your core values, maybe politically, maybe religious, maybe just towards life in general, and then you realize you're not aligned with her, she's not going to be your girlfriend or life partner anyway. So a degree of radical honesty in combination with effective communication goes a long way. Apply for a free initial call if you want my help with that. Speak to you soon.